Have you ever wondered why, despite all your plans, your days slip away, filled with noise, not meaning? Every morning we wake up to a world that demands more than it gives: expectations, distractions, pressure. But the Stoics, centuries ago, discovered a way to meet each day not with stress, but with strength. Not with chaos, but with calm. Before you look at your phone, before the world grabs your attention, there are 9 truths you must whisper to yourself. Not to escape life, but to conquer it from within. First, I control my mind. Nothing else. You will face insults, traffic, delays, rude glances, disappointments. But none of these own you unless you hand them the keys. A Stoic doesn't react to the world. A Stoic responds, with clarity. When you begin your day with this truth, you take back the reins of your mind. And with that, you own the day. Second, I will die. It's not morbid, it's liberating. Memento mori. Every hour wasted in anxiety or anger is an hour lost forever. When you remind yourself that life is not infinite, your values shift. Trivial things lose their weight. You stop chasing, and you begin living. Third, no one can harm my soul but me. What they say about you, what they think, what they take from you, none of it can touch the core of who you are. Epictetus said, "You may fetter my leg, but my will remains free." Every day, people will try to shape your identity. But if you repeat this lesson, you'll remember. Only you decide who you are becoming. Fourth, I am not my emotions. You feel rage? Let it pass. You feel sadness? Let it teach. You are the sky. Your emotions are the weather. They may roar like a storm, but you remain unmoved beneath it all. This is not suppression. It's supremacy. True strength is silent. Fifth, I will not be mastered by pleasure. The modern world whispers indulgence into your ears. Scroll more, eat more, buy more, chase more. But pleasure is a chain dressed like a crown. Marcus Aurelius warned that what begins in comfort often ends in regret. When you remind yourself of this daily, you begin to resist not through force, but through wisdom. Sixth, every person I meet is a mirror. That impatient driver? Your own impatience, unmasked. That kind stranger? A reflection of the good you forgot existed. The Stoics teach us not to judge, but to observe. Not to react, but to reflect. When you carry this awareness, the world becomes your teacher, not your enemy. Seventh, hardship is my training. Pain, failure, rejection, they are not the end. They are the forge. Seneca said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." When difficulty arises today, do not resist it. Welcome it, for it is chiseling the greatness within you. Eighth, I need less than I think. The Stoic wakes up not asking, "What can I get today?" but rather, "What can I let go of?" You carry too much. Desires that exhaust you. Goals that aren't even yours. When you remind yourself of this truth, you begin to travel light, and move faster toward a life that's truly yours. Ninth, today is enough. Not tomorrow. Not the past. Today. This moment. This breath. This task. This coffee. This sunrise. Stoicism teaches presence not as a cliché, but as a discipline. When you tell yourself this every day, you stop waiting to live, and start living now. So, how does a person truly live? Not in the grand achievements that the world celebrates, but in the quiet victories no one sees. Waking up with intention. Meeting the morning with clarity. Speaking with purpose. Choosing restraint over reaction. Courage over comfort. Stillness over noise. These 9 lessons are not meant to be read and forgotten. They are to be lived, daily, stubbornly, faithfully. Each one is a thread. Alone, they're simple. Together, they weave a philosophy so resilient, it has survived empires, wars, and centuries of human error. The Stoics were not perfect men. They were flawed, just like you, just like me. But they practiced. They wrote down reminders, not because they had mastered them, but because they hadn't. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man of his time, didn't write meditations to teach the world. He wrote them to teach himself. He knew, just as we must know, that wisdom is not inherited. It's earned, one choice at a time, one moment at a time, one morning at a time. So tomorrow, when the alarm rings, don't wake up like a man being dragged into another war. Wake like a warrior prepared for training. Repeat these truths until they're etched into your bones, until they are not what you believe, but what you are. Because life will test you. And when it does, you won't have time to search for strength. You'll have to be it. And when the world throws its weight upon you, through insult, injustice, or loss, you won't crumble. You'll stand, silent, unshaken, not because the storm is gone, but because you've become the mountain. People around you may not understand this quiet power. They may mistake your calm for coldness, your discipline for detachment. Let them. You were not born to be understood by the noise, you were born to master it. Your journey is inward. Each repetition of these Stoic truths is a sharpening of the blade. You won't see the results in applause or approval. You'll see them in restraint, in peace, in the ability to walk through fire without flinching. The man who repeats truth becomes truth. He becomes immune to manipulation because his values are not for sale. He becomes immune to fear because he's befriended death. He becomes immune to chaos because he's anchored in principle. This is not about being hard. This is about being whole. Because what the Stoics understood, and what we so often forget, is that the greatest victories are not won in arenas or headlines, but in quiet moments of self-mastery. The decision to hold your tongue. The courage to act despite fear. The wisdom to let go. The strength to begin again. Every morning is a reset. You do not carry yesterday's shame or tomorrow's worry. You carry this moment, this breath, and with it, the power to return to the path. Not with fanfare, not with noise, but with resolve. Repeat it again, and again, until the repetition becomes character, and the character becomes destiny. And in that quiet, steady repetition, you become dangerous. Not in violence, but in virtue. Not in dominance, but in discipline. Because in a world ruled by impulse and chaos, the man who governs himself is a revolution. He doesn't need to shout. His presence speaks. He doesn't need to argue. His life convinces. That's the Stoic path. Not loud, not glamorous, but forged in the fire of daily practice. You won't find shortcuts here. Only the long road. The honest road. The road that asks everything from you and gives back something rarer than gold, peace. True peace, undaunted by praise, untouched by insult. Not the peace of a quiet room, but the peace of a quiet soul. The peace that comes when you know you've done what you must, said what you should, and let go of what you cannot control. This is the reward of daily discipline. Not applause, not recognition, but the profound knowledge that you are aligned with truth, with nature, with yourself. So each day you rise, don't seek perfection. Seek progress. Seek integrity. Seek the still point in a turning world. That is where the Stoic lives. That is where you must live. Because these 9 truths, if you don't just repeat them, but become them, they won't just change your day. They'll change your life. And in the end, when time takes all things, these virtues, this strength, this soul you forged, will be the only thing that was ever truly yours. So when the end comes, and it will, you won't plead for more time. You'll nod with quiet acceptance, knowing you lived with intention. You faced your fate with a steady gaze, not because you were fearless, but because you trained for this. You didn't waste your days chasing applause. You spent them refining your soul. And when your body returns to the earth, your choices, your courage, your character will echo longer than any monument. This is the Stoic legacy, not etched in marble, but carved into the moments no one saw, the battles you fought within, the temptations you overcame, the compassion you showed when you could have judged, the restraint you practiced when the world screamed for reaction. And now someone else will watch you, not because you told them to, but because your presence teaches louder than your words. Your children, your peers, your strangers. They'll see the calm in your chaos. They'll see that it's possible to live this way. And just like that, your discipline becomes someone else's starting point. Your daily practice becomes their first question. What does he know that I don't? And they will look inward, as you once did. The chain continues. So tomorrow, when you rise again, don't forget what you've just heard. Speak those 9 truths not just to yourself, but into yourself. Etch them into your routine like sharpening a blade. Because you're not just building a life. You're building a legacy. One choice, one breath, one truth at a time. And in that legacy, unseen by most, yet undeniable in its weight, you will leave behind more than memories. You will leave behind a pattern of living, a template for those who come after you, for those lost in distraction, drowning in noise, craving a compass. They'll study your life not because you were perfect, but because you persisted. You didn't rise through luck. You rose through repetition. Every time you fell, you stood again. Every time you were mocked for being too calm, too still, too serious, you stayed your course. Because you knew. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more men and women who remember themselves when it matters most. And one day, in some quiet room, far from your name, someone will sit in silence, trying to find their way. And they'll stumble across a line, a sentence, a phrase you once lived by, and it will land like a seed in the soil of their soul. Because words fade, but example endures. So carry these 9 Stoic truths not like a burden, but like armor, not to shield you from the world, but to engage with it fully, without losing who you are. And if ever you forget, if ever the days grow heavy and your path seems unclear, return to the beginning. Start again. Breathe. Repeat the truths, one by one, until they are no longer lessons, but the very rhythm of your life. This is how the Stoic lives. And this is how the Stoic dies. Not with fear, but with a quiet, knowing smile. And when that final breath leaves you, not in panic, not in regret, but in peace, the world may carry on as if nothing happened. But something did. A flame passed from one soul to another. A quiet revolution, sparked not by anger, but by awareness. Not by control, but by self-mastery. Because you lived as few dare to. With eyes open. With ego quiet. With intention in every step. You didn't need to conquer empires to feel fulfilled. You ruled something far greater, yourself. You built no throne, but you walked with royalty. You wore no crown, but carried the dignity of one who answers only to truth. So now, as the chapters close and the story turns to silence, there's no need for grand endings. The real triumph was never in reaching the end. It was in how you walked the path, unshaken, unyielding, and utterly aligned. And in this alignment, you became untouchable, not because you had power over others, but because no one ever had power over you. So carry this flame now, not as a sermon, not as performance, but as a quiet oath, renewed each morning, between you and yourself. Repeat the truths, live them, breathe them, and when your time is done, someone, somewhere will do the same, and without knowing your name, they will carry your light. And so it goes. The light you carried flickers in another's chest now, a spark passed without ceremony, without need for acknowledgement, because legacy isn't about recognition, it's about repetition. One man steadies himself in the face of rage. Another walks away from temptation. A young woman speaks truth instead of pleasing. A tired soul wakes at dawn and chooses discipline over delay. They don't know they're living your echo, but they are. And in this quiet ripple of right choices, the Stoic lives on, not as a statue in a square, but as the steady breath behind a better world. This is what the ancient ones understood. Zeno, Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus. They didn't write for glory. They wrote because life is short and forgetting is easy. They wrote to remind themselves. And now you remind yourself. Because the world will always try to make you forget. It will distract, tempt, provoke, exhaust. And in that fog, you will be tempted to abandon the path, to react instead of respond, to indulge instead of endure, to control others instead of command yourself. But then you'll remember. Maybe just one phrase. Maybe just a breath. And like a sailor spotting the shore after a long storm, you'll steer yourself back with calm hands. And begin again. Because you are not lost. You are practicing. And practice is the price of peace. And practice becomes the path. Not something you do, but something you are. Because one day, you will no longer need to repeat the truths out loud. They will be in your posture, in your silence, in the way you enter a room and cause no harm, but allow no falsehood either. You will walk through the noise of the world, untouched, not because you are numb, but because you are anchored. You will begin to see things others miss, not with the eyes but with the soul. The way someone speaks when they're hiding fear. The way desire clouds judgment. The way urgency destroys wisdom. And with each small act of restraint, of courage, of clarity, you will become a living philosophy. Not a man preaching virtue, but a man embodying it. You will grow quieter, not because you have less to say, but because your presence begins to speak for you. You will argue less, because truth doesn't beg to be believed. It simply stands, like a mountain in the storm. People will ask, "Why are you so calm when everything is falling apart? Why don't you react like everyone else?" And you'll smile, gently, not because you have all the answers, but because you've learned which questions no longer matter. You will have nothing to prove. Nothing to hide, nothing to chase, just the daily ritual, to live according to nature, to align with reason, to leave the world just a little lighter than you found it. And yes, you will still stumble. Even the wisest slip, even the strongest falter. But you won't crumble the way you once did, because now your foundation isn't built on emotion or approval. It's rooted in principle, deep and unshakable. So when anger rises, you'll observe it, not obey it. When fear whispers, you'll listen, but not kneel. When life tests you, as it always will, you won't ask, "Why me?" You'll ask, "What now?" And you will move forward. Always forward. Not fast, not loud, but steady. And that is how the Stoic wins. Not in grand triumphs, but in thousands of silent victories. Over self, over ego, over impulse. victories no one will ever see. But you'll know, and that knowing, it changes everything. You'll look back one day, not with pride, but with peace. Not because you conquered the world, but because you finally stopped letting the world conquer you. You were once like everyone else, searching, proving, performing. Now you simply are, aligned, whole, present. This is what Stoicism promises. Not comfort, but clarity. Not ease, but inner equilibrium. And in that space, between stimulus and response, between desire and discipline, between emotion and action, you will find something most people never do. Freedom. Freedom, not the kind sung in anthems or written into law, but the deeper kind, the kind no one can give you, and no one can take away. The freedom to be unmoved in a world that constantly pulls. The freedom to choose virtue, even when no one is watching, especially then. Because when the lights go out, when the crowds leave, when all titles are stripped and your name is just an echo, what remains is who you chose to become. In the moments that didn't seem to matter. That is the Stoic secret. Life is not decided in grand turning points. It's decided in the ordinary. The commute, the conversation, the decision to hold your tongue, the choice to rise early and begin again. Not once, not occasionally, but daily. And over time, those days gather like stones, until you've built something solid, a life made of choices, not chances, a soul shaped by discipline, not desire. You won't need to convince others of your peace. They will feel it. You won't have to declare your strength. It will be in your stillness. You'll become a quiet lighthouse, in a world full of flickering flames, not competing to shine the brightest, just standing tall, consistently, so others may find their way, without even knowing why. And as the years pass, your silence will grow deeper, not from detachment, but from understanding. You'll speak less, but each word will carry weight. You'll rush less, because you'll know that nothing truly important moves in haste. And when others panic, when they grasp and scramble and break, you'll remain unshaken, not because you've escaped life, but because you've entered it more fully than they ever dared. You will see that most people spend their lives reacting to noise, to pressure, to fear, to fashion. But you will have trained to respond, with thought, with awareness, with timeless clarity instead of temporary emotion. And that response, measured, firm, rooted in values, will create something rare. Respect without demand, influence without effort, because you won't be living for others' eyes. You'll be living from your own center, from that unshakable place where ego dissolves and presence begins. You'll stop needing victory, because you'll realize the true triumph was never external. It was always within. To know yourself, to master your instincts, to walk with integrity when no one else will, to wake each day and whisper, I am the ruler of my inner world. I will face what comes. I will hold to what matters. And I will let go of all that does not. And one day, long after your final morning, someone will find your journal, your worn book, your habits, your silence, and they'll understand, not with words, but with a feeling, and they'll begin their own path, their own quiet revolution. And that's how it begins again, not with noise, not with applause, but with a whisper in someone else's soul, a quiet wondering, could I live like that? And in that question, the seed is planted, just as it was once planted in you, not through a sermon, not through force, but through the unshakable presence of someone who simply lived differently. You won't be remembered for the things you owned, but for the space you held, the peace you carried into chaotic rooms, the calm you offered when others trembled, the truth you stood for when it would have been easier to blend in. And maybe they'll never say your name, but they will carry your example. In their posture, in their breath, in their decision to pause before reacting. And like a river that carved the canyon, your daily discipline, repetitive, patient, unseen, will have shaped something eternal. This is what the Stoics meant. Not fame, not immortality, but living in such a way that your soul remains long after your body fades. A soul shaped not by what it collected, but by what it let go. So tomorrow, when the alarm sounds and the world rushes to your door again, don't run, don't scroll, don't lose yourself. Sit, breathe. Remember, you are not here to be everything. You are here to be aligned, to walk the path, to carry the flame, to repeat the truths until they are no longer truths, but your very being. This is the way of the Stoic, and this is how eternity begins.